2009. It is 8:40 in the morning. This is the Arts, Parks, Health, and Aging Committee. I'm joined by the great councilman of the 1st District, who's very appreciative of all the work that CAO does on helping to relocate yards.
Thank you very much. That was 12 years in the making, so thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And she's a John Marshall graduate, so she will help everybody. And Mr. Reyes is here. Mr. Weston will be joining us shortly. Madam Clerk, what do we have before us?
The committee has 7 items before them this morning.
Okay, let's hear the first item.
Item number 1 is a report from the LA for Kids Steering Committee relative to the 7th cycle Prop K RFP.
Good morning, council members. Bernice Howlands, Office of the CAO. The LA for Kids Steering Committee is recommending 2 deadline extensions for the 7th cycle RFP. Council authorized release of this RFP in May 2009. It includes $12.15 in Prop K funding and $984,000 in Parks First Trust Fund funding. The first deadline extension would allow applicants to submit their proposals for the Parks First funding category, extending the deadline to November 10th, and for the Prop K deadline, extending documentation of site control into October 22nd.
Great. In the report here, you have a Vermont Western Station.
Yes.
Now, those are parallel streets, so tell me, where's that?
There's a special assessment district that's established roughly in the area of Children's Hospital. Your district, there's a small portion of your district that's included in the area, and we're simply collecting assessments to fund park facilities.
Does it go as west as western?
It's, like you said, it's centered roughly around the Children's Hospital.
That's Sunset in Vermont.
Yes.
As opposed to Vermont and West.
The area itself, it's a planning area, and that's what it takes its name from.
Yeah. You have a map?
And there is a map at the end of the RFP that's attached to the transmittal. It's the very last page, page 40.
Right. So is this the boundaries?
Yes, what's shown in the map is roughly the boundaries. It appears better in color.
Oh, do you have a colored map?
Not on me, but I can provide that to your staff.
I mean, I think for the committee as well, just to see what.
Yes.
So basically, I guess it would be from Franklin Avenue south to, well, depending on if I could read the gray on this.
Yeah, like you said, it doesn't come out very well in grayscale.
Right. Okay, and obviously Mr. Garcetti is very supportive of this.
Yes.
Right. Okay. And there's been community outreach on this?
With all of our projects, yes.
Right. But I haven't heard of this yet. I'm a pretty good community guy, so I must have missed a meeting. So anyway, item 1, any questions?
I'm just curious, this funding will allow for what type of opportunities?
The funding, both Prop K and Parks First, funds acquisition, development, and renovation of recreational and park facilities.
Citywide?
Well, Parks First is just specific to the area, and Proposition K is citywide.
Parks First is where?
Just the area that's defined by the map we just referenced.
Okay. Do you know about Parks First?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a long process. So this is an assessment, huh?
Right.
Are there any current assessments that the property owners are going to be compared to? I mean, the property owners that deal with assessments because of the red line, correct? Is that red line assessment going through here as well?
The Parks First is a development fee, whereas Proposition K is an assessment.
Okay.
Who's the expert for the city on this?
For Parks First, it would be the planning department.
City planning?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I haven't been briefed on this, so I think I should get a briefing, because I'm supposed to know these things.
The collection? Yes, I think the fund was started in 2001, and it was my understanding that someone in your office was briefed prior to us releasing the RFP. I'm not sure exactly who that point of contact is.
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean,
we will be happy to
yeah,
brief
brief.
you
I
on
want
this.
to be up to speed before we go to council.
Right. The city collected the funds to use for the development of parks in that specific plan area over a number of years.
Right.
2001, 2002. So right now, this is the first opportunity that we have to offer a competitive process to distribute those funds.
Right.
And so we're asking for an extension of that deadline.
Right. Because the one question I had, Ed, in the future, you know, we sometimes, like, there's absolutely no gymnasium in Griffith Park. And there's, I think, no basketball courts in Griffith Park, but there's many other things. But I also thought in the future, to try to keep land free of buildings, that a future would be a gymnasium either at the the Western Hollywood subway redevelopment area, or, you know, because we use gyms are on top of the parking lot or wherever. So I just want to get briefed and up to speed. Mr. Drucker supports this here? Okay.
Okay. Just to clarify, does the red line corridor in this vicinity at all?
I'm not sure.
Well, the red line is right underneath here, but I don't know
Right.
if there's any assessment to the red line.
That was my question.
No, it's strictly a development fee, resident.
Okay, yeah, because I ran into the little buzzsaw over it.
Right, it's an
MacArthur Park for
the
that.
development fee that's assessed on housing. So in order to mitigate the impact of
Right.
residential development in the area.
Right. I just to explain to property owners that, yes, they did pay into the assessment that built the red line. It was then RTD, now MTA. So they were a little troubled about another assessment. We were dealing with some other park issues there, so I just want to make sure they were separated. That's all. Thank you.
Good. So if, Mr. Drucker, you skilled on this issue? Yes. Maybe you could visit with me sometime in the back bench or something. Okay. Well, Mr. Reyes, you okay with it? Move forward. Next item.
Thank you.
Item number 2 is a CAO report relative to an MOU between the Department of Recreation and Parks and the LA County Probation Department for the after-school enrichment and supervision program.
Good morning. Veronica Salumbidas with the Office of the CAO. The proposed MOU is for fiscal year 2009-10. Under the terms of the proposed MOU, the LA County Probation Department will provide approximately $480,000 in Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act grant funds for the Department of Recreation and Parks After-School Enrichment and Supervision Program. The department will provide job skills training, in camp counselor leadership training, sports management and officiating, crime scene investigation, multimedia production, culinary arts internship. 2 actions are currently required. One is to authorize the department to accept the grant funds from the LA County Probation Department, and second, to approve and authorize the President and Secretary of the Board of Recreation and Park Commissioners to execute the proposed MOU. There is no additional impact on the general fund. The CAO recommends approval.
Mr. Reyes, any questions?
Can you or anyone here walk me through a case example of how this money will impact our communities?
This is actually the 9th year of the program. This is the 9th year that the city has received funds from the LA County Probation Department. The after-school enrichment supervision program, it provides structured activities for children and for teens, and they help them develop social, physical, and vocational abilities. It provides a learning experience to participants.
So is there a way to follow this trail of funds and how it's being dispersed throughout the city?
I would like to defer that question to the department. However, I think they're still on their way.
Okay, can we hold that on the desk?
Sure.
I just like to understand, I've been trying my best with probation, dealing with some of the issues and dealing with parks and how we collapse different resources to leverage what little we do have. So it could be that they're using it for some of the programs throughout the city. I'm just curious to see how the stream of funds actually finds itself in our parks and how do our parks manifest themselves there, these particular programs. I'd just like to understand how it's working.
I'm not absolutely sure, but I believe the department uses this funds for Class Parks program. And Class Parks is actually, I guess they're in 39 locations, but mostly in the neediest areas. But if you want to hold this on the desk,
Right, or hopefully they show up by the end of this committee. If they don't, if they could make an appointment with my Deputy Monica Valencia and just get a clear picture of how this money is being used. How does it find itself in our streets? How does it impact our youth? Just want to get an understanding of what programs are being impacted by this.
okay.
Okay?
And if we could, instruct them to meet with Mr. Reyes' staff immediately, so when this comes to council, if not, they're going to have all these questions in council, so we
Right,
want to
exactly
not
right.
hold up the grant.
Yes.
Hopefully they're on the way.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just ask the question, we'll reconsider if it comes. Anybody want to answer this question that's here? Where would you get a better bang for our investment, if you could use that, in after-school programs at school sites or park programs during the weekday? I mean, children are,
Right.
you know, it would be good to study and see, but we'll discuss that later. We're joined by
Right. Okay.
Mr. Wesson. Welcome, Mr. Wesson.
Good morning, sir.
Okay. We're perfect timing because we have an item number 3 right now. Number 2, we're moving forward. We're going to hold it on the desk at the end of the meeting. If not, we're going to not schedule in council till they meet with Mr. Reyes' staff.
I don't want to hold this up, so we shouldn't hold this up.
You want to hold it up?
No, I don't want to.
Oh, you don't want to hold it up? All right, so we'll schedule it, but we should meet with staff.
Right.
Okay, item number 3.
Item number 3 is a motion, Wesson Reyes, relative to various actions for the Rancho Cienega Track and Field Improvements Project.
And no one's here to do that. Does Recreation and Parks quit coming to the meeting, or who's supposed to give the report?
Good morning. We actually have an agreement with the Community Development Department where funds were authorized to cash flow a project at Rancho Cienega, and they were going to defer the start of Pico Washington project. I'm not sure why this says that we're asking for a Public Works Trust Fund loan. We actually were asking to use the residual funds from the original loan to cash flow another project at Rancho Cienega, which is a soccer field project.
So we have a motion here. Are you familiar with the motion?
I am.
Mr. Weston, are you familiar with the project? Any need to?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I would have placed this on consent.
Okay, consent it is then. Okay, then we move forward. I like to talk about things.
No, it's just so you know, we just spent $2 million
Right.
on Rancho Cienega Park. We did brand-new track, state-of-the-art football turf. And I just felt that, and I go there and it looks beautiful. And then, Mr. Reyes, I walk 100 yards east and I see my soccer field and these guys running around. It's like 3 blades of grass. So I think they deserve a state-of-the-art soccer field, just like the football field. Plus, what we learned in council when we were going through budget deliberations is that we save so much money when we have these brand-new turfs because they're minimal maintenance and you don't have to water it. So I'm very excited about this. The next thing that you'll see in this committee where it relates for that park will be money for another Rob Dyrdek skateboard park.
Very
So I
good.
would request an aye vote.
Okay.
And I'll have Ed come out there and I'll play goalie and I'll kick some soccer balls and score all over it.
Thanks for
I've never
the,
played soccer in my life.
thanks for the warning, Herb.
All righty. Thank you. So ordered. Next item.
Item number 4 is the Department of Aging report relative to releasing an RFP for the following community development block grant programs: Emergency Alert Response System, Alternative Housing for the Elderly, and Legal Services.
My name is Jacob Wood. I'm with the Department of Aging, and we're seeking approval to select service providers for the Emergency Alert Response Program, Legal Services, and Alternative Housing for the Elderly. These are core services that the Department of Aging has been providing for, I'd say, for at least the past 20 years.
What's the usual investment we make every year?
Budgeted for? The budget for alternative housing is around 46,000. EARS is around 155,000, and for the legal services, it's around 260,000.
Any questions?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Weston? Okay, no questions, so ordered. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay. Item number 5.
Item number 5 is a motion, Cardenas Perry, relative to the feasibility of creating lactation rooms for mothers with newborns in city facilities.
All right, we have one public comment card. Kristen Lahner? Did I say that right, Kristen? Lahner. I'm sorry, Kristen.
That's okay. Kristen Montelonner. I'm a resident of Playa del Rey. You usually see me as a paid speaker from Sorrell Associates, but here I am representing myself to speak in support of the motion by Cardenas and Perry as a new mom who has been nursing for the past year. I've been very lucky to have multiple friends in City Hall to offer me their offices, but for the public who comes down to hear these committee hearings and your council meetings, I think it's a definite way to get moms more involved and participating in government. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. How old's your baby?
8 months.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good. Anyone else want to speak on this item who just arrived? We're okay, Mr. Weston? Okay, moving forward. Thank you very much. Next item.
Item number 6 is a report from the Human Services Department relative to the status of the transition from the Commission for Children, Youth, and Their Families, the Commission on the Status of Women, and the Human Relations Commission to the Human Services Department.
Hello.
Cheryl Soriano, Human Services Department.
Kelly Hawkins, Human Services Department.
Relative to the report we submitted on July 14th that outlined our operational transition plan for the first 3 months, we are either completed or in the process of completing all of the items. We have a new commission meeting schedule. Essentially, every commission is meeting every month, if not bi-monthly. We have completed initial synergy exercises with the staff and are exploring 4 initiatives that will be cross-functional in nature and harness or leverage different strengths of staff working in the same areas, same geographical areas, and or around the same issues such as youth.
Give us just an overview. Pretend we're from Cleveland.
Yeah.
Congratulations on your victory this weekend.
A big victory.
I know.
2 passes completed.
Yeah, I know. 63.
I'm protesting. I won't be a Browns fan
Okay.
for at least the rest of the season.
So we're from Cleveland. We want to know, what is this department? Overview.
Well, I've never been to Cleveland, but it's
Great barbecue.
it's as you may be aware, on July 1st, the Commission for Children, Youth, and Their Families, the Commission on the Status of Women, and the Human Relations Commission were consolidated into one department, the Human Services Department. The respective boards remain intact. So essentially, we have more board members. We have 33 board members than we do staff. So it's been quite a challenge to merge operationally the 3 different cultures, if you will, or way of doing things, and then also to kind of logistically get the boards involved in a meaningful way, in a way that staff can handle. We have, in the interim, implemented systems that unify the operations for all 3 units into one department. Last fiscal year, we did shared administrative services, meaning the administrative or financial, accounting, and personnel functions for all 3 departments were consolidated into CCYF. So that made it a little bit easier. It's the programmatic side that we were working on this summer. One of the things that we did was we did a couple of things, but the first thing that we did was to kind of draw out and talk to all the staff. We then took all the existing programs and developed work plans for them for the fiscal year. We have not eliminated any programs that were not going to be sunsetted anyways, so all the core functionality of the 3 departments remain intact. This consolidation represents a $1 million savings for the city. 2 fiscal years ago, these 3 departments together were budgeted at approximately $3 million. It's now $2.1 million. In addition, we've been educating all of the boards on what the other commissions do. And as I mentioned before, we're in the process of developing, or we are developing initiatives that broaden or deepen our work, i.e. in a certain community or around a certain issue like youth, to kind of harness what the other people are doing. Some of these field people in the different previously siloed units were working in the same neighborhoods, going to the same meetings, or talking to the same people. They just were not communicating. I think this is a successful, it has proved successful to date in our infancy, of the council and the mayor thinking outside of the box and trying to deliver the same amount of, we have not reduced our services, but we've reduced our output by $1 million. On top of that, we've raised almost another $1 million in outside funding. This includes grant funding. Kelly procured a $289,000 federal earmark for the YWAR program, which has been continually cut. It's a grant-funded program by the county that's been continually cut over the last couple of years, so that's a huge thing, and we're thinking about expanding that to have a boys component. We also have received a $250,000 grant from Caltrans to expand our very popular Kid Watch program, which this year we had to cut by a third because of budget cuts.
But you also came up with some innovation on that, right? The Kid Watch is the play in school.
Yeah, that was functionally transferred from the city attorney 2 fiscal years ago. It was in about 25 schools. We increased it to about 140 this year because we haven't been able to, and we've done this with a very small staff. It's a very cost-efficient way of both, providing the fundamental thing around school safety that's very important to all of you. And also, it's a vehicle for civic engagement. Most of these parents this is their first foray into civic life, if you will. If you attended our graduation last June, we had over 1,000 parents on the lawn.
The first steps. Yeah.
They are driving this, and they are very excited and happy to do this, and it's a wonderful thing to see. And we've done this, and it's a very low-cost program. We've done this, and we've facilitated this. It's volunteer-driven. We work around the infrastructure at the school. We've done this with about the equivalent of 4 staff. And this year, because we've had continual attrition, we've relied on part-time staff. We haven't been able to backfill those $17 an hour positions.
I understand that. Let you know to call on the council people. If there's a school in someone's council district, I think the council always want to know that Mayberry Avenue School or Ivanhoe School or Los Feliz School or Cypress Avenue or whatever would want the program. How could we help it? Because if you're short-staffed, we have staff that could help try to start training, get it engaged with the community. I would like to just say that it's something we don't want to see, that someone says, well, we wanted to get a safety program at our school, but this new department didn't help us. We want to help.
Right.
If there's anything that's standing, I think it's incumbent upon you to let council know that there's a application from a public school that wants this valet program. Can you help us? Because we are multi-assigning our deputies to do a variety of things now because of the crisis that we're in.
Well, per your suggestion last month, we have compiled a list of all the schools in each council district, and we'll be disseminating that to chiefs of staff shortly, and it will include the service levels last year and what we may or will have to reduce this year. Obviously, the Caltrans grant of $250,000 will mitigate that significantly if we're able to, and we just received unfreezes from the hiring freeze committee for that, but we will send those out to you. The other thing about Kid Watch that's beautiful is that it's a vehicle for civic engagement, and we haven't developed this component yet, and this is in its infancy. We are working on having that be an educational model, or having that be a way to disseminate information about city services that way, and also back to get feedback from maybe a population that no one they don't come to council. Last June, when they came to City Hall, that was the first time many of them had ever seen City Hall. I mean, physically and figuratively. So that, and also trying to incorporate some of our synergy initiatives that we're developing are, for example, incorporating some of the skills of the human relations advocates, such as conflict resolution, dealing with racial tension, and developing a training component around that. So we'll see how far we get on that this year.
Thank you. Mr. Reyes has a question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a grasp for the scale of the challenge that's before you. Is there a way to quantify what is your targeted beneficiary group, who you are trying to reach, and given the number of folks that are participating, are you considering that a success? Do you consider that a work in progress? Is there a way to frame the level of effectiveness? Because we are collapsing 3 departments into one. We are looking at, and you describe, and I applaud you for the yeoman's work and the staff. They sound like warriors in battle, and they're surviving there as they maintain their position, and they don't want to let go of any ground. They want to move forward. But is there a way to start putting into perspective what this transition means in terms of real impact? Is there a way to quantify that?
Well, to date, I mean,
I'm going to ask you to answer this right now. It's a question I'd like to ask in a report back.
Yes,
if the chairman,
we will do that.
Because I think what's important is to understand what is the impact of our actions, not only in the community, but with our staff. So you're describing 4 positions or 4 individuals who are doing the work of how many?
Well, I don't know how many, but we've been effective, or we've developed ways to do it effectively so that each one impacts about 250.
But as a policymaker, I want to be able to stand up and defend
Yes.
this city's work, your work, and all the difficulties you've overcome. So to do that, I think we need to understand the context of how these changes are affecting our constituency, our beneficiary group. But we have to start with the basics. Let's define who is the beneficiary group. Who are we seeking to support and help? How are our resources being translated into real service? And who's delivering that service, and who is benefiting from that service? So there's a way to create that context, because we are talking about a collapse of 3 departments. We are talking about a different way of doing business. You speak of efficiencies. Well, let's define those efficiencies so that we can say, indeed, that is an effective way. I know you had some.
So if I might interject here, and we'll put this in the report back, but actually, as a result of this consolidation, we have instituted cost accounting that basically will attach each council district to each activity that we're doing. So we will be able to tell you, we will not be guessing off the top of our heads, and we won't be going necessarily only on a sign-in sheet.
Right.
But we will be able to quantify who are we actually serving. And then the previous fiscal year, for some of the departments, they actually do have notation of what population they were serving and which council districts. So that could serve as somewhat of a baseline, but I think it would be in our best interest as a city to utilize the baseline that we'll collect from this current fiscal year's cost accounting.
Right. So I'm asking for too much, but is there a way to understand the scale of this?
Yes.
Because you have a population base that's so big.
Well, it's varied, and it's not just measured in size, because, for example, for KidWatch, we reach a lot of people, but we provide a shallow, we facilitate level of service. The volunteers are carrying that. For a program like the Transgender Forum, which the Human Relations Commission unit facilitates, that's very labor intensive, and it's not as many people, but that could potentially drive some major policy change. So there's different types of and levels of service that's not just measurable by number of people. But one thing we did this year, at the beginning of the year, was we did year-end summaries of all the programs of the new department coming in, the old programs, and we developed work plans for the future years so that we can provide this information. Every month, we release a GM report to our 33 commissioners and also to the council office. We send that all to you, that provides the status of all of these activities and all of these programs. That's a monthly report that's uniform, and everyone receives it. It tells you how far we're coming numbers-wise, issue-wise, with every single program we have.
See, I'm not just numbers-oriented, believe me, I'm not. I do understand and appreciate the quality of the service and the intensity of every case and how challenging that can be, and that could be very labor-intensive. That I do understand. As a former recruiter of students from the inner cities into the universities, that was our rock in a hard place. Do we just play the numbers game to pick up the numbers, or do we actually challenge and look at individual students to make sure they get into higher education? And you could not always do both. So I appreciate what you're saying there. I think for this committee, I'm new to this committee. I'm becoming familiar with the transitional challenges you're going through, which are very unique at this point in time in the history of this city. But I also don't want to forget who our beneficiaries should be. So I want to get an understanding of what areas are we impacting. Are we truly looking at areas of greatest need, and what are our challenges when it comes to demographics? When we talk about Chinatown, it's one issue. We talk about Little Tokyo is another. We talk about Central American versus what's happening in East LA, very different to what's happening in San Pedro or in Silmar or Pacoima. So that I truly appreciate.
Okay.
But to get a sense of perspective here as to how this is going to move forward, given the collapse that has occurred and the leveraging that seems to be. So looking at your report, it's dated July. You have very distinct goals and measures that you want to accomplish by October 30th. That's 2 weeks away. So if we're reaching them, that's great. And if we are, how are we reaching them? And the questions I've asked hopefully can help me get a better understanding of what is in front of us, and maybe perhaps collectively as a committee recommend policy that will enhance what you're doing.
Well, one piece that we do not have and that we are, supporting or proposing is that this department, it's a $2 million department with a huge mandate, children, youth, families, women.
Right, the highest poverty levels of the region are found here.
Right, so how do we, we've raised $1 million so far in outside funding, and that's great, but to your question of, are we getting the most bang for our buck, or are we strategically, assigning our workforce or our resources in the proper way? That some of that is a real long-term policy discussion that I think, each of these three departments, when they were formed, had specific mandates, and specific purpose. And it's getting more and more difficult to feed all of those mouths, if you will. And some decisions are going to have to be made. Our mandate right now is to maintain what we have and improve it, and clean house, so to speak.
But let me put it into context. At least from my point of view, we are in a real heated discussion about the budget. Some very real decisions have to be made.
Yeah.
There is a very public debate as to how you prioritize public safety with social services, with human services, et cetera, et cetera. The executive of this city, the mayor, has taken a certain direction. We as legislators, the council, need to work with him to figure out the best case scenario for the city. But I can't do it in a void. That's why I'm asking these questions.
Yes.
I need to understand the substance of the impact so that when we stand up in council with 14 of my colleagues, a clear picture should be given that this is the opportunity cost. If we're going to take this step, then something has to give. And the nature of that impact has to be understood, because they're going to be coming to my door when it comes to those children, those child care providers, those senior service providers. That will come to our door in our respective offices and our respective districts. And we need to be able to stand together and say we're working as one as a city. But we need to be informed. That's why I'm asking these questions.
I can submit a follow-up report to your office, to all your offices within 30 days, answering that question as far as I think I understand now, impact.
Yes.
And we're very poised and positioned to do that. I think that, we can argue or strongly argue that this department, we've acquired about 8 new programs in the last 2 years with no net increase in cost. This department is a good value for the city and is doing things in a transparent and efficient way, and I think you'll find that in our report back that will be clearly demonstrated for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weston.
All I want to say is, anyway, Kelly, it's good to see you again. 33 commissioners you guys have to deal with.
Yes.
How does that, I'm just curious, in fact, that's something when I see you in council, you can just whisper in my ear. And let me know how that goes. But I wish you well. Your jobs are very important. We're asking you to do more with less, and I'm appreciative of the approach that you're taking.
They're very passionate, so we're trying to harness that energy.
I think so, and a lot of this grew out of the mayor's office. I personally believe a lot of this should be in the mayor's office of Human Relations, the mayor's office of Children, Youth, and Family, the mayor's office of Youth Development or something, because Olivia Mitchell was one of my mentors. Yeah, that was it. And you were there too. So sometimes it's good to have departments, but like in a crisis time like now, if you're in a political office, you could work without boundaries. You don't have to say, well, that's that department's responsibility or that department. You could do that more from the political side. But we look forward to the report.
Okay.
I think be prepared when this comes to council, because I think other people, colleagues will have the same pointed questions to know what's actually happening. And, sometimes I think as a city, and I'm a believer of the whole city, but you almost have to start in one corner of the city, whether if you started at Figueroa and Colorado, and then just went everywhere else, and you started at Washington and La Cienega at the banks of Culver City, and come east, and just, you get this school, you get this neighborhood, then go to the next one, because what we do usually is we pick them by council districts, and you never build synergy. If everyone in the Northeast was together on programs that Children, Youth, and Family had, they would be at a higher level of skill set, as opposed to one school here, one school there, one school there.
Sorry, one of our initiatives is a Northeast initiative. So we're trying to coalesce all of our programs and start new modules in that one area as a pilot and see how that works.
And believe me, I'm not being focused on just District 1. I strongly believe the city is ever going to have any traction in changing its areas of greatest need. We have to be looking regionally. Mm-hmm. I do know there are 4 to 5 council districts that hit ranges of up to 40% of their respective populations are at or below poverty. Mm-hmm. We're talking about a family of 4 surviving with $21,000 a year. 40%, that means half of 250,000 people. I mean, that's a high number. Now, when we start grasping that number, and then we start looking at what our dollars are delivering. Mm-hmm. Those are precious dollars, and those are precious few people that have access to that service. So how do you nurture it? How do you take care of it? How do you build it? And that's what I'm hearing you doing. Mm-hmm. I just like to understand how are you doing it, and is there ways we could see from a different perspective how we can support you, given the dire conditions of the city when you have $400 million deficit. So that's essentially the perspective I'm trying to attain, and not devalue or diminish in any way your hard work.
Good. Well, thank you. And then we're going to, Madam Clerk, this action on this item, this report. Can we set it on to council
It's going to Budget and Finance Committee next.
first, and then we'll go there? Okay, good. So by the time it comes to council, there'll probably be an update, and we'll move forward.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
You have the next item as well, I believe. Madam Clerk?
Yes, and item number 7 is a report from the Commission for Children, Youth, and Their Families relative to revising the LA Ad Code to facilitate the restructuring of the Youth Council.
Yes, this has been a year in the making. The Youth Council was previously a body of 14 young people that met in City Hall periodically to be part of the civic engagement process. The Youth Council has been restructured over the course of a year via participation from the youth themselves, and this has been a laborious, as most democratic processes are, a laborious process. And the aim of it is to enable the Youth Council to be decentralized and more representative, and basically wherever 5 youth gather in their community, they can form what is called a Youth Council chapter. They elect a main board, a representative board, and then a second board is, I think, nominated by the council members. And the youth, I think we've increased our membership now. Prior to these changes, we had 1 youth council here in City Hall, and it's very hard for them to get here and hard for them to participate. If there's 5 youth in a church, for example, or in a youth group, or 5 friends around some neighborhood, we wanted them just to be able to be part of this structure and part of this process, to kind of like a neighborhood council, but for youth council. And so that's what these changes are. It's very democratic. It's kind of complicated, but as of now, 2 years ago, we had 1 youth council chapter with about 8 members that was in City Hall. Now we have, I believe, about 4 chapters with 30 members. So we've quadrupled our youth participation, if you will. And this is a core function that I believe, you can't contract out to a nonprofit or anything. This is about engaging youth in government. And this is something that we've been doing for a long time. We just wanted to expand its depth and its reach, and it seems like people that participate in this program do very well, and learn. Our youth commissioner right now, Ari Ruiz, is being a good example, learn how the system works, learn how to advocate, learn not to be afraid to talk to people, to express their opinions, and we just wanted to broaden that scope and have more youth be able to participate in it. So that's essentially, and again, this was developed over the course of about 18 months. Many meetings, many votes by the young people, and this is their work.
I'm going along with the program as chair, but I also believe the citywide program has a benefit. I can't tell you whether it's Mr. Reyes or Ms. Gruhl or Mark Ridley Thomas.
Right.
All benefited. I benefited from being on Mayor Bradley's youth council, and I would like to see whoever the mayor is have a citywide council of 14. And people find their way to, it's tough, but they find their way to the location. I know they can do it regionally, but we'll go on with this.
That's maintained.
Here, right?
That's maintained. That's not being touched.
Okay.
It just expands it to, so for example, if the theme, every year the young people choose a theme. So last year it was environment. So if, so this past weekend, whatever the theme is, they organize events around that. So 1 youth council chapter is organizing a fundraiser to raise money to buy baseball uniforms for their local community group. Another one, for example, is raising money for day laborer issues in their community. Whatever they feel is relevant that is related somewhat to the theme of the youth council, they can do, and we just wanted to empower that and spread the benefits that you and other people have experienced to citywide, essentially.
Right. And we organized all the student body presidents of middle schools and high schools.
I don't know if we're doing
Because,
that.
I mean, we should work with the, I think you should say to them, let's at least in the spring, in early spring, because before you know it, then it's into graduation time, just invite them to some experience. Because you never know what that experience brings later on in life that they've come. Just like what you said, the valet program, it was a tremendous, 1,000 people, oversubscribed, because everybody took advantage of your invitation, because they wanted to be part of this thing called the valet program and the school safety program and all of those things. And that was probably one of the best events all year that you organized. Look at the other opportunity. They're out there. Let's try to engage with them so they can know there's an opportunity. Any questions? No questions?
This is another
Okay.
program that we've increased the output and maintained the staff.
That's
So
good,
one
yeah.
staff person does this.
Good job. Who's the staff person?
Elisa Lam.
Tell her she's doing a good job.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you both very much. There's no other items then before us at this time. Madam Clerk, are we clear?
We're clear?
So at 9:27 on this day, the 13th of October, this committee is adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wesson, Mr. Reyes.